What's up, dudes? What's up, buddy?
Hey, it's over here snowing like mad in Utah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we'll hit that in a minute. I had some questions for you, see what you guys are up to, but see if there's our other buddy, Matt. Once Matt gets in here, we'll get kicked off. Hey, sir, how are you?
Good. What's up?
Not much. Appreciate you guys joining in. And I wanted to hit a couple things real quick and then kind of open it up to get your guys' input, because I think we have a lot of similar thoughts, but we come at it from different sides and different angles. And sometimes you guys see things I don't, and vice versa. I posted something last week about data, right? People want to use, and I see it every freaking day on Instagram, a badge cam or an OIS video that's put up on Instagram, and then the cheap seats like to bleed into what they would have done, could have done, how it should have been. There's a lot of good content out there where guys talk about it and they bring up really good points, but a lot of times I question, like, hey, do you understand how to appropriately evaluate one of those? And do you have all of the information that's required to make a really good evaluation of it? So I fell for this trap years ago when those things would come out, and I do this, I do that. And then I went and got training on it, and I realized how little information is actually included in the usual body cam that's released by an agency. They're not doing it to limit information. They're not doing it that way to hide anything, but they're just putting out, these are the basic facts. Here's the videos that show what it is. And there's an ongoing investigation going. So it's really just a primer saying, hey, this is the basics of what happened. What it doesn't include is like the half hour prior to the shooting of radio priming. What call were they on prior to it? What information do they have or already know about it in the area? And what else, what other things could affect their decision-making process in that call? What was known prior to them showing up, right?
Yeah.
Listening to the radio traffic, the actual 911 calls related to it, then listening to the radio traffic, then listening and actually interviewing the officers involved it opens your eyes up to go, oh, what I thought was going on. Let me get Matt back in here.
Yeah.
It allows you to kind of look at it and go, okay, what I perceive to be going on as the person viewing this camera isn't the whole story. So those initial perceptions you can get from looking at one of those, you have to step back from it and say, all right, that's showing me one specific view from a specific camera that doesn't necessarily orient in the same direction the officer's looking, and definitely does not perceive what they're perceiving. This goes right into the whole point where people want to pull then data. They want to call it data that they pull from these things. And I made a post about the difference between empirical data and anecdotal. Every one of those shootings is anecdotal data. It's the view of one camera. Every one of those interpretations that the officer gave in their interview to people who weren't them, and none of them, and most of the people I see do these reviews don't have actual one-on-one interviews with the officers involved. That's why everything is anecdotal. Guys will say, well, the data is this. It's, these occur in, most occur in, it's going to occur in, or it usually does this. And they'll pull that data from what they've read in a report or FBI statistics or the LEOCA, the law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty stats. So that 3-yard shooting that you'll read about, well, see, look, if there's 27 that were 3 yards. Okay, the first one started at 55 yards and the guy ran at him with a machete and the shooting occurred at 3 yards.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's a 3-yard shooting. It just means that's where it ended and that's where the actual shooting occurred. Guys will say, well, this shooting occurred in and around a vehicle. What they don't understand is the initial shooting occurred 27 yards in front of the vehicle. Then they ran back to the vehicle. The guy was still mobile. He ran to him and collapsed at the front of the vehicle. And the officer fired another round as he was collapsing. So those distances, without understanding the whole story or without understanding all of the dynamics that went into it, aren't empirical scientific data. They're just facts. They're things that occurred. But guys want to use them and pick them and choose them and then make assumptions as to what they should be doing in training or how they should be going about it. And that's kind of the whole reason I wanted to start this talk today was I see guys reviewing badge cams, and I don't see them saying, hey, these are the things that occur, and these are possible reasons they did occur. It's not to excuse the action, but it's to explain, hey, these are why some of these things happen in law enforcement shootings, because that's the ones we have the best video of, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe in self-defense with a citizen shooting with a security camera on it. We like to say, well, I would never do this or I would never do that. But a lot of the actions that we see are involuntary almost. They're almost, and I want to say, Matt, you had him on talking earlier, and then we were at a class talking with an individual who's works with kids with autism and talks about their reflexes a child has, like the you blow them and they lurch back like this, or the ability to grab. Those big draws you'll see officers do where the guns come out really high, and it's just that overstimulation of the basic process they have. Now I'm kind of rambling on it, but I kind of wanted to get your guys' input on where we get data from, how we perceive these videos. But even when you guys watch them, you can get an emotional reaction to them, like, fuck, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? But I know you guys have been able to step back and say, all right, well, I don't know the story that led up to it 5 minutes and 30 minutes prior. I don't know what all the radio traffic was, and I don't know what their mind was programmed to receive from the information they got via dispatch or also over the MDT, or if they had a radio in their ear at the time of it. So what's your guys' take on that? Yeah. Unless that's a really long-winded question.
I'll jump in real quick and throw things out. What you're talking about, obviously, is the context of the entire event. And you only get the perspective of one person. Everybody here's done, entry stuff. You only saw what you saw. You didn't see what everybody saw. You only saw your slice of that operation. And then, the AAR at the end, we try to put everybody's slice together and make the whole pie. And that's, I don't know what looked silly to me made perfect sense to you because I couldn't see what you could see. And that's the whole problem when people look at a we call it BWC, they look at the video and they're like, oh, I would have done this. Like you're looking through a tube. You can't see anything else around it but one little portion, one slice of that engagement. That's one thing. So there is no context that comes with that unless you can splice together 6 body cams and all the information prior, like you said. And then there's things that I see when I see people use data. Look, X amount of gunfights are won from the back of a vehicle. Well, what is that based on? Okay, the best place to be is at the back of the vehicle. What is that based on? You have to have filters on that, like parameters for that data. Like, okay, if it is what makes it the back of the vehicle the best place? The orientation of the vehicle to the threat. So what does that tell us about how the vehicle was utilized, or what potentially the situation was that the vehicle was in? Normally, it's a traffic stop, okay, because it's nose to rear or some sort of stop. So that when you start digging beneath the surface, you have to recreate the totality of the circumstance, and you don't get that from one little slice of it. And what you said before, like in and around vehicles, people say that all the time. Well, it's in and around a vehicle. In a vehicle has 2 different factors. Fighting within a vehicle is you and I fighting over a gun inside of a vehicle. Fighting from within a vehicle outside is me shooting through the windshield at somebody trying to kill me. Fighting around a vehicle is I just happen to be somewhere where there's vehicles close by. Okay, you could be an officer on a foot patrol and you're fighting around a vehicle. Does that fall under in and around vehicles? Like the data is so dirtied up because most of the people that quote data don't even know statistics. I mean, I'm not a statistician. I'm not, but I've taken 2 semesters of college statistics. I kind of understand it, and I know enough to know when people are just throwing stuff around that favors their position. Okay, so I think on that, when we start talking about data, now you got to look at if you don't publish that data and let people review it, then it doesn't mean anything to me because it can be anything.
Yeah, I think, Chris, that most of the times where guys are referencing data, it's not empirical data, right?
No, it's not.
And that's the problem with it is they take data sets and then manipulate them to meet their end game, which is the result that they want, right? Where empirical data, right, or just empirical commentary or anything is based off, hey, I've been in that situation and these are the things that happen. That's where I think too, there's a lot of guys that will really emphasize data points, and that's like a piece this big in the whole solution to a problem, or even what they should be talking about in my mind. right? You can never evaluate all of the context or all the situation. Or, hey, this all was going on. All you can evaluate is what the camera shows you and like what you see. And usually that's where I think there's a good comment in here about evaluating skills versus evaluating the tactics.
Yep.
The tactics are really hard to evaluate because unless you put all of the information together, every single view of every camera combined with, any security cameras that were there or things like that. And that's where I think the data, when people lean so heavily on, well, data shows us this. Well, if you give me that same data set, I can make it say a lot of different things.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where, so the skill set thing is my whole point of this, that I want to loop this back into, right? So what I wish guys would do is when they're reviewing a badge cam, when it gets pushed out to YouTube by an agency, or when you find something posted on Instagram, stop asking or saying what you would do and start asking yourself more of the questions of why did it occur that way? And in the end, the vast majority, because they usually are all shootings that we see, that's usually what's getting posted. It's an officer-involved shooting that gets evaluated at the department, and they want to then push that out to be transparent, right, within about a week of it occurring. I'm telling you right now, that investigation is not complete, but there's the video so they can just say, hey, this is what occurred. Ask yourself, why did it happen? Why did they do this? Why did they do that? And because it's a shooting, really step back and go, in the end, it doesn't matter what the tactics were. This ended up being a skill problem. This ended up being a shooting problem. And it was either solved well or poorly or just out of pure luck. Like, there is a lot of gunfights in America between the police and felons and between citizens and felons that are won with a 0 hit factor. Bullets are shot all over the place. Somebody gets hit in the arm and the whole thing is over with.
Yeah.
That is a 0 on a hit factor.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
When you shoot somebody in the foot and it still ends the fight, the hit factor is 0. All right. Because that isn't what you were aiming at.
Yeah. No penalty miss.
In the end, it is a skill problem. And it's a skill of processing information. It's a skill of, being able to use your vision, which I think we'll hit here in a little bit. But it's a skill in the end of shooting. The fact of whether they should have shot or shouldn't have shot is irrelevant to that point. Was the shooting good? Like, was the actual physical skill, the hard skill of shooting, was that performed at a high level? Was it done subconsciously? It's either yes or no. I could care less if the shooting was good or bad, right? Does that make sense in that point?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Take all the minutia out of the way and ask what in the end was the problem. It was a shooting problem. It was done good or it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then we can break the tactics down later.
I think when I look at stuff like that, I'll throw something in 2 seconds, Matt. The first thing I say when I look at something is, what did I see? What did I actually see? I'll watch it before I say anything to my friggin' self. I'll watch it 4, 5, 6, 10 times and go, what did I actually see? Because people get caught up in the entertainment part of it. I'm like, and I'll pick out a lot of stuff. That recent shooting that just happened in the church. Saw the guy come on fire, engage the guy with a rifle, come back in, pause as his teammates push, drop down and put on safe. Okay, like, I see, that's the stuff I'm looking at, the skill stuff. But before I make any judgment, I'll go, what did I actually see? What did I see? What kind of movement? What control did they have? I'll look at it from that point. And I think too few people actually stop and really review it. But they're freaking, Doc Holliday with the freaking comments right off the bat.
Well, because I think if you start to give, critique or input where it's focused on the skill side, no matter how you deliver it, you stand the chance of that looks like a personal attack. And that's how most of the people will receive it. Even, I don't care how palatable you make it, because at some point you're going to have to either say, hey, that wasn't good, this is what you could have done better. And no matter how that delivery is, what I've seen people do, they always receive that in a very negative fashion.
Yes.
Right? It's like you're talking shit or whatever. It's like, no, I'm just talking about this, And the way that I personally like to receive feedback is like very blunt, very direct. Hey, this is what happened, right? This is why it was wrong. But people look at that then in terms of, especially when it's an actual shooting, that it's like an armchair quarterback type thing, with rather seeing like, we're talking about getting better. And there's some things in here. Yeah.
Dude, the stuff leading up
the classic things going on in the things with this dude and the instructor Tony. Well, if you give blunt feedback, it looks at it like it's a personal attack. Like, right? If you're critiquing something in the social media world, right? And you have to, like, a lot of the stuff you see, it's like, that's just dumb. Right? And it's dumb for this reason.
I'm looking at some of those comments. If you constructive criticism is what all great organizations use. They use it. Everybody of the three of us has gone somewhere and gone, and somebody's gone, dude, you fucked that up. This is what you did. But like, they've come right out and said, you know what? That was not the right answer, dude. You know, I know you had the best intentions, but it wasn't. And you just got to man up and go, you know, Roger that. Got it. I made a mistake. The constructive criticism, all that's heard when you put something out is criticism. It's looked at as pejorative. You're downing somebody. Instead of trying to make a suggestion that might help somebody, it's looked at as pejorative. You don't get to say that because he's the good guy. The good guy won, or the good guy was injured. So now he can't be criticized. And I know none of us come from that place, but a lot of people, it doesn't absolve you of failure points or mistakes. It just says you won. Okay, good. Not shorting you for your win, but in the Instagram world or the social media world, any criticism is taken as someone detracting from someone's performance or someone's, you know, dedication to do whatever. And it's not at all. It's like, and so, yeah, like, I'm the same way. If I screw up, just go, hey, dude, you screwed that up. Like, that was wrong.
I think that's the main point of it. Like, I wanted to bring this topic up as just a simple thing to talk about. And some people are getting in late. They're like, what are we talking about? Who are we picking on? We're not picking on anyone. We're educating. We're talking about, like, hey, how do we make decisions and how do we actually learn to get better? We're using law enforcement shootings because they're the simplest thing that gets pushed out there that everybody likes to Monday morning quarterback all the time. What I'm trying to say is we need to understand why things happen and not excuse them. We don't learn about human performance. We don't learn about perception and reaction. We don't learn about slipping captures and learn about all these human behaviors that we have to excuse what happened, but it helps us explain what happened. Yeah. This is probably what occurred in this event. That's the reason we should be using these things, right? If you can look at it and go, am I capable of doing that in the moment? And you can perceive it on a video as like, man, that looks like it's probably, you know, 6 or 7 yards, but you don't understand that the way the camera's built, it has a fisheye in it, and that there's companies that are hired to flatten those videos out, that go out and do LiDAR of the scene and will do a 3D overlay of the video playing in a 3-dimensional thing and actually break the entire thing down so they can show you what happened, where you can move around in the 3D world on a laptop and go, oh, so they were actually standing like this, and I didn't realize that this freaking mailbox that from the view of the camera was off to the right. How did he shoot it? But when you look at it in reality, when they put it into this virtual world, you realize it's literally 2 inches off the point the guy was aiming at. And because he moved, he missed by 2 inches and hit an intermediate barrier. So those very simple things that people have trained that way and pushed themselves hard enough, especially with intermediate barriers in cars, the cars are getting shot up and they're getting hit. And you're like, I'm good. And your line of sight is great. Your line of bore is just a ½ inch off. And all of those things happen in reality too, especially when people are moving fast. So all of the goofy things that we see and the odd behaviors we see, I wish guys would spend more time learning why they occur so you can start pushing your training so it doesn't happen to you, or as I say, it's less likely to happen to you, right? You can start pushing your training in the direction of going, if that occurred and I had to do this, I would have had to have been able to draw and fire this many rounds in this time frame at this distance. That's what actually the speed of the engagement would have required if I were to replicate it. But if I were able to do, let's just say 3 rounds in the same amount of time, and those 3 rounds all hit instead of the 1 that hit and the 5 that missed, would I have been more effective? And would I have been in more control? And would I have more accountability for my rounds? And they can start to develop their training in that method. And Matt, you've talked a lot about that too, the speed of reality versus the speed of training.
Yeah. I mean, I think the speed on the training side needs to be beyond what like the real life speed is. Right. And that way, and it's a very simple concept that we all know from like little league league sports, high school sports, right? The practice always needs to be harder than the game.
Yep.
Right. But I don't think a lot of people do that, especially when we're talking about training with the tools, because it's very, very difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, if you want to have a lot of, speed, a lot of horsepower, a lot of aggression in what you're doing, especially shooting a pistol, shooting a rifle, but there still needs to be an extreme element of control. And I think that's hard for people to do that. Right. And then it also takes an extreme amount of interest, right, and commitment on that individual, which that's what I see more times than not is not present.
Yeah.
People just don't have a desire to get better.
Especially over the long term, right? Like they'll have the desire to do the one thing and maybe come to the class or do whatever, and they don't realize the class is a primer for just expanding your ability to train. Like, these are all the things I got to work on. Well, those fucking four are hard and I don't like them. I'm not going to do those, but I'm pretty fucking good at this one thing. So I'm going to just keep getting better at my one thing. And that's been told, like, it's a tale as old as time, right? We know that. That's what guys like to do. That effort part, the ability to get guys to do it, is what I hope these things, when we talk, maybe it clicks in somebody's head. You just got to want to do it better, because if you don't understand, like, shootings are going up involving law enforcement, ambushes are going up involving law enforcement. So if you're in this line of work, or you're in any line of work where your job is to carry a gun and defend others first, not yourself, right? If your job is to defend others, you should take it very seriously, because someone else or you will die. And even if you win the gunfight and you take 2 rounds through your guts and you're shitting in a bag for the rest of your life, the piece of shit still won, right? Because now you're all fucked up. Especially if it was over a freaking crack rock or some bullshit. You've got to be able to perform. And not is just, you're failing yourself, you're failing the community.
Yeah.
And somebody posted in here like, well, that's a personal problem, nobody can fix it. And yeah, that's true, but like, culturally, if departments start to push higher standards and your peers expect more of you, like, bring back bullying is a thing. If everyone around you is excelling and you're a turd, you won't be around very long.
Yeah.
And people get the hang of that real quick.
When I hear people say that's a personal problem, it's not a personal problem. Because you have an effect on your entire environment. Your partner is banking on you to be as advertised. If you're not, hey, guess what? You're jacked up and you don't get clipped, but your partner ends up shitting in a bag his whole life, or you got to go tell his family, hey, sorry, he was a great guy, but like, there's a lot of other things in play. You have a responsibility to the people around you and the general public, and if you don't take that seriously, that's a huge cultural problem. You have, like I've said it countless times, you got a badge and a gun and the authority to extinguish human life given the right circumstance. If you don't take that seriously, then those in leadership positions above you should be counseling you, because you become a liability. The less experienced or the less competent you are, the more of a liability you come. I just spent 20 minutes talking to a guy about some shooting stuff. He gave me a call off the range, actually, trying to get people to go faster. And one of the things that Pat and I have talked about from his experience, and I've heard it from you and other guys, and I just, my own slice of the universe when it comes to that, the catastrophic, the most dangerous things, the most catastrophic engagements are 0 to 15 yards at warp speed. They're as fast as you can humanly move at 0 to 15 yards. Because outside of that, you've got more reactionary gap. You can move. You can do things that you can't do in the immediacy. At 15 and in, you're just going to get it on. Like, it's going down right here. And if you don't have the skills to support that, you are. If you win, it's luck. It's just pure luck. It's like, and now you have an obligation, because you have potentially a partner or other officers involved, and you have the general public around you if you're throwing bullets out. So that portion of it is, to me, is critically important from the leadership perspective. Looking down, that can't be tolerated. Back to just real quick circle around. We talked about people watching videos and critiquing. The goal of, I don't watch like shooting videos as far as like OIS videos and all. I don't watch it for friggin' entertainment. I watch it because there's something to learn. Yeah. Like, I look at it and go, what can I learn from this? What can I get from this? It's not entertaining to me to watch people try and kill each other. It's not entertainment. That's just the world we live in. Okay. So when they look at that, and if I look at that and go, you know, if they had been faster with their pistol, or if they had been more accurate or whatever, it would have been resolved sooner. Whatever it is, whatever critical statement that I make, it's not a personal attack. It's just saying this could have been done better. Back to what you said, when at the point of delivery, it's about shooting. That's the engagement. And so if you look at that and go, you fired 6 rounds and you had 1 hit. It was obviously an answer that allowed you to survive and somewhat prevail, but it's not the right answer. It's a, you know, and when you criticize that, it gets taken personally because you're shorting the, you know, the freaking hero or the sheepdog or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, I think that it is a cultural thing that people have just in the social media community. They want to make someone into a hero so they can say, oh, I'm on their team. I'm like, I'm still on your team. You're a copper and you won. Good on you. I'm behind you. I'm just saying this is something you need to work on. And I think that's back to what you talked about. You start looking at video as data. It's anecdotal. This is one instance, and you saw through a toilet paper tube what you saw, and you have no idea what else happened.
Magic.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like Matt put up a good comment here about the, you know, you have to fix all this stuff from the inside, right? And I think step one is raising the standards. Now, what that looks like, that can be, that's where I think the argument gets like convoluted and the water gets really, really muddy. Like what's important, what's not important, right? And I think that's something that like individual agencies need to sort that out, right? Because if raising the standards, like nothing bad is going to happen in the long run from raising standards.
No.
Right? But it's also, we're usually talking about shooting standards, right? Let's go back to how we're selecting people.
Yeah.
Right? That's the most important thing. The selection process is going to give you fix that, that's going to fix the end product better than, hey, we're just going to make the tasks more difficult.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, and I think that's another thing that like won't ever get addressed. There's a bunch of comments in there like, oh, you know, cops should get paid more. Like, dude, that has nothing to do with getting them to take interest in their job.
None.
Right? And I think
you got to want to do it.
I think most law enforcement dudes I talk to are like, I haven't heard anyone complain about their pay being like substandard.
Right. Like let me hit some things. Pay. You can double the pay at an agency and you will get precisely the same output of work. You'll get precisely the same desire to excel. You're just going to pay them more for shitty work. That's all you're going to get out of it. You can raise pay and hope that maybe that draws some people in. But again, it's a rabbit hole. Like change the standards and change the selection process. I can't argue that at all. I agree completely. The way that you begin your selection, what may not be perfect, a good selection process gives you the highest likelihood of having success with them down the road, right? Good selection leads to a good likelihood of them being successful. The problem we get with good selection is applicants, right? Applicants, you get less and less applicants because why would people want to put up with just the regular bullshit that goes on in day-to-day life? Like bringing back policing, instead of it being law enforcement and being peacekeepers, we don't need to write tickets to mom on her way to freaking soccer practice. You need to be catching felons who are doing felonious shit, right? The landscaper on his way to work in the morning doesn't need a fucking traffic ticket. He needs you to go, hey dude, fix this stuff on your truck. Have fun at work today, man. Hope you get home to your family safe. We need to change the way we do our policing. We need to change all this stuff. But if the applicants aren't coming in, it's because the overall job has changed so much that the people who want to do it are going to do other things because they're capable of it, because they're smart, they're capable, they can do all those things. Why would they want to put up with this bullshit? And this is where you end up with like the freaking Memphis, whatever, felons and thugs who can't do nothing else and be like, I'll go be the police. And now you're paying these guys freaking more money. Like it is a cultural problem in law enforcement. We need to fix ourselves. It's something for us to work on. It has nothing to do with standards in shooting as far as like all that goes. That's like, those are things we need to work on as a culture.
If you don't tie, just from the human behavioral perspective, if you don't tie an increase in pay with a required increase in proficiency. If you don't tie those two together, then you will, like you said, you will get exactly the same performance for more pay. If there's no requirement, hey, if you don't perform at a certain level, you don't get this pay. You are tiered based on your level of performance and raise the standards, then yeah, you're exactly right. It's not a because they're never going to be able to match. Like you said, it's a difficult job. They're not going to be able to match the private sector for the best people. You got to have a guy that wants to do it, and then there's got to be a culture that tells him, we want you to excel and we will reward you for excelling.
Right. So the likely argument is always, well, cops don't get paid to train, right? Or I've heard, have gotten messages where guys say, hey, I'm not going to do that training unless I get paid. It's like, okay, so what if, say, you can build the department for up to an hour a day of dry firing, right? And now when you do that, though, if after 3 months we're going to assess you, you've built us 150 hours of dry fire, you're going to come shoot this. If you didn't, now you owe us 150 hours of payback.
Dude,
right?
It is. You're right.
Because everyone would just bill that time and not do it. I think the vast majority would. It comes down to like, this is like, it's personal interest, right? And that's where if guys are motivated and committed to getting better with anything, they're going to do it, right? If I don't care what the task is, if you make it a priority for yourself, then you're gonna accomplish it, or you'll be more willing to accomplish it, right? And a lot of guys are talking, oh, well, it's the new generation. I get it. Everything's changing, and that's what we're talking about. But there's even dudes in here, if you say the wrong thing, it's like it's the sensitive flower. And it's like, well, it's too aggressive, it's too toxic. It should be aggressive and toxic, right?
Yeah.
It should be, because everyone will complain about, oh, it's this new generation, everything's changed. Okay, what are you doing to change it? Have you changed the way that you are addressing these things? Have you changed the way, I agree, like social media is a fucking horrible place for all of this, right? It doesn't perpetuate the mentality that I think people need. It just feeds into the same loop of like, of honestly, like kind of trash behavior or whatever, or promoting, like you could be very, very successful with very low levels of commitment in the social media world.
Yeah. It's entertainment. It is not an educational medium. It's an entertainment medium that we've hijacked to try and make it educational, but overwhelmingly it's an entertainment medium.
Right. And the entertainment part goes back to my original topic of like how we actually review these police videos when they come out. Mm-hmm. If I look in the comments section and all I see, and even if it's like a guy crashing a car to someone or whatever it is, like some, outrageous surveillance video or police video comes out, it's absolutely asinine comments from people who have obviously never done anything remotely like it before. I woulda, I coulda, I shoulda, they woulda. Instead of how did that happen? And asking actual questions like, hey, how far was the engagement? Instead of how the hell could he possibly miss him? Well, I don't know, how far is the engagement? And when you actually interview these officers, which is part of my job, when you actually sit and talk to them, they will get frustrated in the beginning. But you do got to tell them, like, look, dude, I get it. It is hard. But let's be honest with ourselves. And you just have that frank conversation with people. And most of them, when you're face-to-face talking, can have a frank conversation. They don't get hurt that much, right? Let's just be honest. These are the facts. You fired this much. You missed this much. Why do you think it happened? Man, I don't know. I was just shooting because I was scared shitless. Well, fucking A, there's an answer.
Yeah.
There's an answer. So how do we fix that? Would you like to learn how to do it better? And there's a lot of interest after somebody's been involved in a lethal force encounter in getting better. There's a whole lot of interest on their side usually when they survive it. Yeah. Of like, I really want to get better at this.
It makes it,
but we don't ask those questions. How'd that happen?
Breaks them.
How far was it?
Right.
How much training do they have? That's bullshit. I would never do that. Instead of like, hey man.
Yeah. So here would be, I would think, like a very good data point for that is if you were to ask them, and I know that you can't just kind of ask them anything, Chris, but when guys, they have a shooting, like the first question I'd be like, hey, how much do you train outside of work?
Yeah.
We
right?
discussed
And
things
that
like that.
is the vast majority of those guys like, nope, I shoot the qual, I go to the mandatory training, and you get result X.
Yes.
Yep. Or is it the guy that's like, well, I'm coming in, I'm taking full advantage of the ammo that your agency gives, the time that they're committed to do on duty and training. Like I would think that the shootings that those types of people are in look very, very different than the shootings where the guy, hey, I shoot once a year and I don't come train on my own.
Yes. So we'll have guys that are involved in an incident who I see at the range all the time training, and I see them putting in the effort, asking questions, and their shootings look completely different than many others. They look completely different than any others. And it's just, that's over. Okay. Hey, dude, good job. You were in the right place. You were in the right time. You made an excellent decision. Your engagement was controlled, and it was this. And then we have other ones where it's like, hey, excellent decision. Good choices here. We lost control a little bit here. These are some things we should probably work on. And just not tell, you don't tell them, hey, you fucked everything up. It's like, these are the facts. Would you like to get better at it? And you can usually show someone in about an hour, because we don't replicate what happened. We just go out and show, this is the skill set you tried to demonstrate. Let's see if we can work on how we could actually accomplish it. And I'm telling you right now, 17 splits are something that are very hard to accomplish on something that's 30 yards away. Yeah. I find that to be a big challenge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So realizing that behavior, if it just comes out of you, is something you have to experience in training. So your body can go, this ain't a good idea. Let me just move to cover instead of making Plastic Jesus sing. Right?
Yeah. I think though, like all those things, like it's the solution to this problem is very, very simple. Right. But it's also, it's not anything that I would think any agency on any large scale will even attempt to do. You know, like even what your agency does, Chris, like I have never went and trained with anyone where I've heard the exact same issue where they take the exact same approach where like, hey, we've made barriers to training and access to training so easy that there's no excuse. Right? If you want to come shoot, you can come shoot while you're working, right? You can come for an hour and do that. If you're shooting extracurricular things, right? We can get ammo for that, right? To make it to where guys really have no excuse for your agency to where, hey, I'm not training at all, or I'm not doing anything to get better. But you still have, do you still have more people that aren't training or more people that are training?
Oh, definitely more that aren't. Definitely more that aren't. Like we have the freaking usual suspects that are down there every freaking day. And they're down there doing actual training, trying to get better. And then we have the people who show up once a year, maybe, I got a qual tomorrow. I just wanted to get some rounds in. Well, it's too late. You might as well just show up and shoot the qual and not waste the ammo. But I'm glad they're there. Hey, at least now you know where it is. Maybe this would be something you would do after the qual, once a month, whatever you want. But every day they're welcome. But definitely more that don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of the answers to this stuff, even if it's on the individual side, it's on the instructor side, it comes back to doing the work. Right. And even on the guys that are trainers, instructors, coaches, whatever you want to call it, there's a significant amount of work that needs to be done, not just practicing what you're teaching, like what are you doing to actually develop and get better. And I think that is another thing that can be addressed in this whole problem. And I'm not talking about the social media instructors. I'm talking about the guys that are paid to go stand on a line and teach the upcoming officers, right? That's where the real work gets done, right? It's those guys.
That's where, I think that is where, at least in my experience around the agencies I've been to, that is where those instructor positions and those training positions is where the selection process has to be much stricter. Like an agency only has so many people applying. But once you've hired them and once they've got time under their belt and once had a chance to feel somebody out for 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years, you kind of have an idea who's actually going to give you a good product. And if you're hiring your friends, or if you're hiring the guy because he's the buddy or wherever, and he sucks at this, so let's just stick him at the range, you're going after it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Your instructor cadre, no matter how large it is, if they're tasked with teaching your entire department, the selection of those individuals is massively important, because they are, it's policy, supervision, and training. Those three pillars right there, when they work in harmony, you actually have a productive department that everybody understands what's going on. But if your training section is telling you to don't worry about this, or they're passing on information that's old garbage, everybody's confused about what they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've got to, it's one of my buddies just posted on her, you've got to start them young. Tell them, hey, it is cool to come down here. We are fun to hang out with. This is enjoyable. And have people down there that can actually provide answers that people want to come see. If they're grumpy assholes that are down at the range, ain't nobody showing up. And don't be surprised as to why they ain't training.
That's the cadre at ranges, the ones that are good, they bring people want to get better. They come down there and they look at it, and they're engaging, and they're actually trying to make you better. They're not bashing you. They're saying, hey, listen, let's try this. I watched it with my partner Pat when he's down, and I was down at Long Beach hanging out, and he had to run some folks through some training, and it's like super laid back, like no, let's try it this way. Let's do, like, working with them. The goal is not to say, hey, you're deselected. Basically, the goal is I want you to be more proficient, and that desire translates over into motivation of people. They want to come back. It's actually fun. Most people that once they start to get good at shooting actually enjoy it, and it's part of your job. It's a point of pride. So it's like, again, that, like you said, the people that are selected for the cadre at ranges have a massive effect from my experience, because I've seen some that it's you and I went to the academy together, and it's my turn to get a cush job, so I go to the range. Those guys are worthless. Those guys are minimum standard. They don't even want to help people. They just want to run the qual and hang out and talk about how badass they were back in the day, which is mostly a lie. So it's like, yeah, that portion of it's got to be engaging. It's got to be accessible. First of all, people have to be able to come there. To me, if anyone shows the desire to come train, like, hey, listen, I really need this, they should never be turned away in any department. Whoever the cadre is, should make time. Guess what? I'm actually heading home, but I'll stay here an extra hour and we'll shoot. Like that would have just that little bit of dedication would have a massive effect, full circle. When we're looking at that body worn camera, it'll have an effect on that in a year.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, I think too, there's a good comment in here about the military should be the same way. I don't think it should be. And this is where I don't think the training that law enforcement needs is not the training that the military needs. The jobs are too different, right? Where it's military guys are asked to do a much, much different job when they're doing it for real than what law enforcement is, right? In terms of the skills, the hard skills, like just the shooting piece, yeah, those can be similar, but the environments of how it's delivered is different, I think. But on the guys that are standing on the lines for departments that are charged with training, like, yeah, I think I agree with you 100%, Chris, where how you select those guys is more critical than what's going on in the academies in terms of standards and everything like that. But you see, like, a lot of agencies, I think, will equate like the amount of days that he's been coming into work as some sort of high level of skill.
Right. Well, he's been here for 25 years. He must know a lot.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's the same. Yeah. I think you have to look at the individuals. Is it a guy for 25 years that's burnt out, kind of retired on active duty type situation? Or is it a guy for 25 years has taken full advantage of everything that that department has to offer in terms of training, and now he wants to go do that and come off the day-to-day policing activities because he's very interested in kind of giving back or training guys?
There it is, giving back. Looking for the guy that's done a lot and wants to give back, wants to make sure that the next gen of officers coming up, like, I learned this the hard way, I don't want you to have to. That's something that's in a certain person, certain type of person.
Agreed. if you guys are good, I want to switch topics to a question I had in here because I don't have the answer. I have ideas and I have something that we've been doing, but I want you guys' input on it. One of the dudes asked, there's two separate questions. They weren't related, but I related them. One was about wearing a badge. Like, should you wear it on your belt? Should you wear it on your necklace? Should you wear all these things? And I took that question to be like, how are you going to be identified as a cop if you were in plain clothes? The other question was, how do you get people to stop looking at the specific threat, the inanimate object or the actual object that's threatening, and then get them to transition their vision to the specific point that they need to end that encounter as quickly as possible? Matt, I think you and I have talked about this before. Would you do me a favor and start with it? And then I'll explain the drill that we've been doing with people, because I don't know if it works or not.
Yeah, so I think, you know, it's, for me, the vision, like, over the years, shooting, I try to dumb down, or not dumb down, or simplify what we're training, right? And I think the two foundational skills you have to focus on, it's grip and vision, right? And they're both equally as valuable when we talk about this performance way of shooting. The explanation on the vision side, right, is, for me, I tried to initially talk about grabbing very, very small parts of the target, right, looking small, and then you're getting people to understand through different cues that they need to be paying attention to, and then understand how the result is affected by what their vision's doing, right? And you start initially, like, I'm a big believer in the, hey, we're going to push them in the deep end, and then we'll start giving them floaties to learn how to swim, right? And you can use, you know, the visual aiming markers. I know Ben has done a lot of work with that, but at some point, that's a training wheel, right? You give it to them. Now they can feel it. They've heard all of the cues. They've seen the mistakes. They see what happens when your vision is not as tight as you want it to be. Now I give you something that's going to force you to make it tight. And it's through, like, kind of an inductive process, going through this many, many reps, you know, within kind of guided practice or coached practice. And then now you take that training wheel off, and then the real work starts. Hey, this is what you're trying to do to replicate it. And you give them all of the tools that they have in terms of the one session, or all the tools that they need to be successful at it. And then it's up to them to start going and doing it. Show them how you tie it into dry fire. But it really comes down to, you're trying to create this visual precision that is, it's a paradigm shift for how people conventionally aim a pistol or are taught to aim.
Yep.
And I think it goes back to the instructor side. You have to have guys that understand it to a pretty decent level, and then guys that are working at developing their own things. Because what I see for myself is the way that I explain things changes based off of what I'm experiencing in my own training.
Yeah. Mike, you got anything?
I'm kind of restate the question. I'm not sure that I'm.
So he was asking about how to get someone's gaze off of the inanimate object, like seeing the gun come up when they're doing sims, when they're doing that, everybody gets shot in the hands because the eyeballs are on the gun. Like, I've shown you guys a picture we had on the range with a robot that'll chase you and it has the knife.
Yeah.
And we've had people put bullets through the blade at like thin wise, like zip through the actual edge of the blade, 2 rounds in a row through a knife, because their eyes were so precisely locked on it when it came after them.
So they understand. They don't even realize it, but they understand visual focus. They're just not using it right.
Yeah, the knife or the gun teaches you real quick that, like Ben says, like, for better for worse, the bullets are going where we're looking at.
Yeah.
The question was, how are we going to take people? And I understand completely what Matt's saying. You start here. They've got to be able to accomplish the task first. Then we start showing how to use those tools visually by transferring the vision. That's the threat. Here's what I need to do to stop the threat, not just staying fixated on it. So what do you got as far as getting people to not fixate on the threat?
First, what you said, you got to identify that. You know, that they have to understand what's actually happening. And that's visual focus used in the wrong spot. What they're doing at that one snapshot in time, they are 100% focused, which is why they're actually hitting exactly where they're looking. Once they understand that, then you take that and go, listen, now we want to do it on just a target, like Matt's saying. Just so now you've refined that skill. The next step is putting them in I mean, the way I did it from, at the unit and stuff when we first started out was there are targets, and targets have little hands and guns and all that shit. And when you push people at a high rate of speed, they'll shoot, they'll shoot in the hands, they'll shoot the gun initially, and that gets scored as a miss. That's just considered like, this is not, you weren't trying to shoot the gun, you were staring at the gun, and that has to be reinforced in training. There's the only way, it's a mental thing. It's the ability to go to identify this individual meets the criteria for engagement because of that item. That engagement begins. That item is no longer, that's not a part of it anymore. We've already decided it's shoot. Now where's the best place to shoot? There's got to be a separate thought process. You've got to go, do you meet my rules of engagement or my use of force requirements? Yes, because of that. We're done there. I don't need to look at that anymore. That's not, now the problem is, what is the ballistic solution to stop that? So it's got to be separated. From what I've seen, the only way to do that is to have that in the training and two-dimensional initially, with paper targets. And anytime when they're pushed at a high rate of speed, if they start to look and shoot at it, okay, they're counseled against that. And then force on force is the other. You have to watch people say, listen, look who you're hitting. Look who you're hitting in the hands. Look at the number of people with paint marks on their hands. This is what's happening. And then that has to go back to the range and has to be trained on again. I mean, once you understand the visual focus piece, you shoot where you look, that you got it. Now it's a matter of managing that so that you can separate, evaluating this individual to meet your use of force requirements and going, yes, they meet the requirements. Now it's the shooting piece. Okay. And now I need to find bullets in and put bullets in it, not where I'm looking already. And I think that a lot of that has to do with fear. A lot of that people get spooked. I don't mean fear in any term. Like, you're like, oh, I mean, I'm scared, everybody here's scared. Oh, fuck, you've got to be able in that millisecond to run the program and go, that tool meets the criteria. This individual is the problem and I need to stop them. And see, if they can hit the gun, then it's not a marksmanship issue. It's a thought issue. And then you've got to attack it at that. Once they understand you're hitting a gun really well because you actually understand visual focus and visually focused shooting, now we're going to take that and separate it. There's an understanding piece that I think has to be addressed and it has to be reinforced on the range, and all the instructors have to know it.
Yeah, I think if you transition from having a 2-hour conversation about how to press the trigger, have a 2-hour conversation about vision. Yeah. Right? But it goes back, you have to have guys that understand that,
yes,
that are teaching it and that they understand like kind of the concepts of why it's important, and then understand like how to get to the end state, and also getting guys to realize like this is a continuous like evolving thing. Yeah. It's never like, oh, I'm as visually precise as I need to be, right? And it's more than just, this is the drill that I use to do this, right? It's not about the drill. It's about your objective assessment of what you're doing in any drill you're shooting, right? Because the easy answer that guys do, they'll say, if I want to be more visually precise, I'm going to make the target much, much smaller. And that is, I don't think that is the answer. Right? So we shooting dots or things like that isn't what you're talking about. Is you need to become very, very proficient at grabbing different parts of the target, right? If you take a practical approach to it, like step one is I'm identifying where the target is. Step two is I'm looking at the target. What kind of target is it? Oh, it's a tuxedo. There's a huge no-shoot there, right? And no-shoot targets are the best for this. Yep. Step three, where do I need to look? Where do I want the bullet to go on that no-shoot target? Because there's time, depending on how hard partial it is, going into the A zone isn't the right answer. Yeah. Right? You're going to grab the part of the target visually that's going to set you up for the most success, be able to shoot it as fast as you can with the highest likelihood of success and lowest amount of risk, right? And for a lot of targets, that's not looking at trying to hit the A zone, right? It's understanding I'm going to take points of aim that are on the AC line, right? Yeah. That are still
available ground, yeah.
And it's understanding all of those concepts, right? And then you bring in that, there's a good one in there, like how do you get guys to do that when it's just force on force once a year? Like force on force in inoculates you to a different level of stress.
Yeah.
But guys that don't have issues in force on force or get the most out of that training have very good foundations of shooting that they're not they can pay attention to the whole scenario and everything that they should be doing within that scenario, not just the like, oh, it's scenario, I'm overcome. No, now I have to aim. Because the one thing that they'll forget, and I know you guys have seen it, I've seen it with force on force, they just stop aiming. Because there's absolute nothing bad will happen to them if they squirt Sims bullets all over the training area.
I'll tell you, that's why when Pat and I are doing the vehicle class, you get 5 rounds per magazine. That's it. Because you actually have to aim. Because everybody knows you only got 5 rounds. You scored 5 bullets, you're doing a reload. We've had other coppers know it in the class. They'll just run up and shoot you. And that makes people aim. But there's got to be control measures in place to keep it from being expensive grab-ass paintball. And then there's got to be accountability for it.
I think in my experience, just thinking about this the last week, we're doing 40 mil drills where they got one guy with a pistol, one guy with a 40 mil. They're advancing on our system, that tack up system we have, where it lights up different colors. Mm-hmm. And then there's a paper target directly next to it. We tell them you're not allowed to shoot the steel. The steel is just there to hold the damn light. Don't get to shoot the steel. Everybody's shooting paper. Pistol shooters, you guys are shooting the high chest. 40 mil guys, you're shooting the lower abdomen area. So they start walking up and it changes a color. It's blue means you shoot it with the 40. If it's red, it gets pistol rounds. And we did it so they could say, hey, you're asking a guy to cover you with lethal coverage, and this will make sense in a minute. You're asking a guy to cover you with lethal coverage on all this cop creep up shit that we do from 20 yards out, right? As the guy prones out or he's doing whatever, now we're going to approach to handcuff him. You're 20 yards out walking up. When he pulls up with a gun, what in the fuck are you actually going to do about it using your gun? Are you capable of doing it? Are you capable of staying together as a team? Is everybody just going to run apart? Or is everybody going to start blasting? So we had them do it, and they realized their accuracy was poor at best, only walking and from 15 and in when they actually get the threat, right? They're hitting this humongous Delta Charlie zone in the upper chest with the pistols, and the 40 guys are doing okay because they have the one shot. They know they're supposed to go and whack. I'm hitting it because I have lethal coverage. We also had people shoot the steel. We told them don't shoot it, but that's where the light was.
Yeah.
Light, shoot, bang, they hit the steel. It's not a big deal, but it's like that isn't what you're supposed to shoot. And they're like, fuck, all right. Our really good shooters, guys who compete, guys who realize that the no shoot overlaid across your shoot target is not scary at all. It just means you have a smaller brown target to shoot. And where you usually see those impacts on those no shoots, where is it at? It's within about an inch of the edge, right? That's where you usually see people hitting it. And I don't know if you guys agree, but I don't think it's because they're missing and hitting an inch into the no shoot. I think it's because that's precisely where they were looking when they started shooting, because that's what they're worried about. Is that line.
The ones that when I hit, I was just shooting yesterday, exactly what you're saying. The contrast, I had no shoot crossed over. Where I hit the no shoot was right on the line. I could see the contrast of white and brown. It caught my vision just as I broke the shot. And they're two right on, just two breaking the freaking no shoot. Yeah.
But that's the visual thing. Guys, once they get good at that, again, everything just comes back to a basic shooting problem. If you're good at shooting and you're able to do it, it's just easier for people to process that information. People who shoot poorly or have a lower level of skill at it and they don't have a really good innate hard skill, they're going to struggle with it anyway. I don't think you can train it out of them. You just got to train them to shoot better. Am I way off base with that?
I don't think you are, but people don't like that answer because it's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah. It's the most critical. At the point of delivery of your most critical service as a law enforcement officer is a freaking gun. Like, I mean, I've talked about it a bunch of times with Pat when we're out bullshitting. He's like, yeah, you can screw up a report and you get your ass chewed. You screw up a shooting, it's way worse. And so that the shooting piece is the most critical because it's catastrophic. Okay, I think shooting and driving are two things that are catastrophic for you guys. And so it's like if everybody can shoot really good, it will make everything a lot cleaner and a lot easier. It'll give them more time. They're not thinking about can I. Their brain is processing the information of the situation, not the shooting solution, because that's already running in the background.
And you can do it in dry fire. I think you guys do it. Put up partials, put up that. Stop staring at the damn line and stare at the target you actually want to hit. Do the designated target drill. Do all those different things and start telling yourself, my eyes are going to drive to what my target is, not what it isn't. It's like hitting a damn rock on your mountain bike. Don't look at the stupid rock, asshole. You'll go right by it.